Capricorn, something is shifting in your life, not on the surface, but beneath it. The air has changed. The energy in certain rooms feels heavier. The people who once laughed freely now hesitate to make eye contact. You've felt it, haven't you? And yet, when you try to explain it to someone else, it sounds crazy. Because there's no proof. No evidence. Only that deep, ancient instinct in your chest whispering, something is wrong. Something is watching. But hear me, Capricorn. You're not imagining this. You're not paranoid. You're not broken. You're tuned in. And what you're feeling is real. It's the presence of a trap, carefully woven behind your back, in absolute silence. They didn't want you to know. They smiled as they set it. They hugged you as they built it. They told you they loved you even as they were planning your delay, your detour, your defeat. But here's what they didn't plan for: divine justice. You see, Capricorn, traps built in silence may be hidden from the eyes, but they cannot hide from destiny. And the same universe that watched you cry in silence, the same higher force that watched you give and give to people who could never match your depth, is now moving on your behalf. This video isn't just a message. It's your confirmation. It's the echo of what your soul already knew but was too tired to say out loud. Because something or someone has been trying to break you from within. But instead of falling apart, you've become quieter, sharper, colder. You've pulled back not out of fear, but out of wisdom. And that is exactly why you will survive this. They thought the silence would protect them. But they forgot something. Capricorn was born in the silence. Capricorn learned in the silence. Capricorn became dangerous in the silence. So now, when the trap is tightening, you are already stepping back. When the betrayal is being planned, your spirit is already packing distance. When their smiles get wider, your intuition grows louder. Let me be clear, this trap wasn't designed by strangers. It wasn't made with flashing lights. It was made in soft words, fake concern, and sudden distance. But we're going to walk through every sign together. And you will not fall into it. Because the truth is this: you were never the victim. You were the test. And those who planned your fall will fail their own exam. So Capricorn, before we go deeper, I want you to type these words in the comments right now. Not for me, but for you. Say it clearly. I see what was hidden. I am no longer blind. I walk with divine justice. Because once you declare this, their plan begins to fall apart. Not because you attacked them, but because light always unravels lies. And now, we begin. Stay with me, Capricorn. What you're about to hear next, in part 1, the trap was never loud, it was spiritual, will reveal why this is happening now, who is truly behind it, and how you're about to walk through the fire untouched. Part 1. The trap was never loud, it was spiritual. Capricorn, they never raised their voice. They never shouted your name. They never made a public scene. Because the trap they set for you was never meant to be loud. It was meant to be spiritual. That's the thing about the people who fear your strength the most. They don't attack you with swords, they try to confuse your spirit. They sow doubt. They create just enough discomfort to make you question your intuition. They don't want to destroy you with fire, they want you to walk quietly into your own downfall, thinking everything is fine. And that's why the first sign of a spiritual trap is subtle. It begins with a shift in the air, a feeling you can't quite name. You enter a room and feel pressure in your chest. You speak and their faces smile, but something inside you says, this isn't real. You dream of being stuck, tangled, slowed. You wake up more exhausted than before. And when you ask yourself why, no answer makes sense. Because this trap wasn't born in the material world. It was constructed in frequency, in emotion, in energy. It was planted by someone who knew they couldn't stop you with direct confrontation, so they chose manipulation instead. And who better to manipulate than a heart that always gives? Capricorn, you are not weak, but you are consistent. You don't run from hard work. You don't abandon people easily. And unfortunately, that loyalty is what makes you a perfect target for subtle harm. They use your routine against you. They study your habits, not to support them, but to interrupt them. They mimic your kindness, not to uplift you, but to imitate you and discredit you behind closed doors. And while you're out there building, creating, elevating, they're watching in silence, weaving their strings, hoping that one day, they'll pull tight and you won't be able to breathe. But here's the truth they didn't expect. You're a spiritual being, Capricorn. You don't just operate in logic, you move in vibration. You know when something's off. You know when the energy in a room changes before a word is spoken. And even though you try to be rational, your spirit won't let it go. That's why you've been more tired lately. That's why your soul has felt heavier, not because you're failing, but because you're resisting the web they're trying to throw over you. They thought you wouldn't notice. But Capricorn always notices. You just don't always react. And that is what terrifies them. They expect you to confront, to accuse, to explode. But instead, you step back. You observe. You say less. You move differently. And in your silence, you become extremely dangerous, not because you seek revenge, but because you see everything now. This is not the time to second-guess your instincts. This is not the time to play nice with people who drain your energy. This is the moment to listen to your soul, the one screaming for space, for clarity, for distance. Because here's what they don't know. This trap. It's not your ending. It's your awakening. Capricorn, listen closely, because this will be the most important thing you hear today. The silence they use to hide their trap is the same silence you'll use to escape it. The stillness they mistook for your weakness is the very force that will guide you through untouched. They moved in shadows, but you were born from mountains. And no shadow survives when a Capricorn rises. In the next part, we'll go deeper into the exact energy signatures that reveal someone close is involved even when they smile, even when they support you. Because the truth is, spiritual traps always require someone on the inside. But now you're watching. And once a Capricorn sees, the trap is already broken. Part 2. The friend who watches you and can't bear your rise. Capricorn, the most dangerous trap isn't built by a stranger. It's built by someone who knows your favorite drink, who remembers your childhood dream, who was there for you when you had nothing. And now that you're becoming more, they can't stand it. This isn't jealousy in the way most people think. It's not loud. It's not obvious. It's not even conscious sometimes. But it's spiritual envy, and it's been growing like a silent storm beneath their smile. They used to celebrate your success, or at least they pretended to. But now that your light is getting brighter, their own shadows are starting to scream. They begin to withdraw. They take longer to respond. They suddenly forget to invite you. They make backhanded comments about how lucky you are. And when you succeed, their congratulations are laced with tension. As if every win you gain reminds them of a war they lost long ago. You see, Capricorn, they were comfortable with you. When you were struggling. When you were the underdog. When you were climbing slowly and they felt ahead. That made them feel important, even generous. But now that your mountain is rising, now that you no longer ask for help, no longer beg for inclusion, now that your name is being whispered in rooms they'll never enter, they've begun to grieve your growth. This kind of friend becomes the perfect architect of a trap, because they still appear close. They still say the right things. They know your routines, your dreams, your pressure points. And that's why their betrayal isn't just painful, it's precise. They start with small interruptions, suggesting you slow down, questioning your timing, sowing doubt in your momentum with fake concern. Are you sure that's the right move? You've changed lately, I miss the old you. I just think you're taking on too much. But what they're really saying is, I'm uncomfortable with how far you're rising, because it reminds me that I'm stuck. Capricorn, this is not a moment for guilt. Do not shrink to make others feel taller. Do not dim your light to protect someone else's shadow. Because what they see as a threat is actually your healing. What they call too much is just your destiny waking up. They do not have to understand your expansion. They were never responsible for your soul's evolution. And if their love was real, it would have grown with you, not turned into poison when the altitude changed. Now here's the hardest truth. They're setting the trap because they believe you won't see it. Because they think your loyalty will blind you. because they assume your past with them guarantees your future with them. But they forget one thing about you, Capricorn. You change without announcing it. You evolve in silence. And when you sense betrayal, you don't rage. You remove. Capricorn, do not let shared memories become chains. You can bless someone from a distance. You can forgive someone and still block their access. Because some friends are not enemies yet. But they are no longer safe. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner the trap becomes just another failed attempt to stop what was divinely written. In part 3, we will go even deeper into the signs from the universe that reveal when a spiritual trap is being prepared, before it ever shows up in words or action. Because remember this, the universe always whispers before it shouts. And right now, Capricorn, it's whispering to you. Part 3, the universe always whispers before it shouts. Capricorn, you've always trusted hard work. You've always believed in structure, in effort, in staying grounded. But even the most grounded soul must learn this. Before anything shows up in the physical, it moves first in the spiritual. And the universe, your protector, your divine ally, never lets a trap come without a warning. Not for someone like you. Not for someone who was chosen to climb mountains others fear to face. But here's the challenge. These warnings are never shouted. They come softly, in symbols, in dreams, in feelings that make no logical sense but refuse to go away. Capricorn, think back to the last few weeks. Have you been feeling off, even when things seem fine? Have you walked into rooms and immediately felt like you didn't belong even though no one said a word? Have you noticed yourself forgetting things, losing energy, needing more sleep, but waking up still exhausted? That's not stress. That's spiritual interference. It's your intuition trying to speak louder than your logic. Because here's what most people don't understand about traps. They are prepared long before they're revealed. They form in quiet conversations, in private texts you'll never see, in whispers passed between people who wear familiar faces but carry unfamiliar intentions. And yet, your soul hears them. You'll feel it in the random argument that comes out of nowhere. You'll feel it in the sudden change of tone from someone you trusted. You'll feel it when your plans get delayed, not once, but repeatedly, and always for reasons that don't make sense. You'll look around and feel like reality is shifting beneath your feet. But no one else seems to notice. That's because you're not being paranoid. You're being prepared. One of the most sacred truths of Capricorn energy is this. You are ruled by Saturn, the keeper of time and karma. Which means, you don't just receive messages from the universe. You receive corrections from it. When you're about to walk into something dangerous, you won't just get a feeling. You'll get roadblocks. You'll get divine interruptions. The meeting gets cancelled. The person goes silent. The money doesn't come through. The car breaks down the moment you're supposed to show up somewhere. And it feels frustrating, even devastating. But what if that delay was your shield? What if that disruption was heaven's way of saying, not this path, not this time, not this trap? Capricorn, you're so used to taking responsibility for everything that you forget something important. Not every setback is your fault. Some of them are your rescue. You prayed for protection, but you didn't know it would come in the form of lost opportunities. You asked for guidance, but you didn't realize it would sound like confusion first. That's how divine intelligence works. It doesn't always explain itself. It acts. And only afterward, when the smoke clears, do you see what almost happened, but didn't. So here's what you need to remember. The moment your soul begins to feel unsettled, the moment the air in your spirit changes, that's not an error, that's an alert. A signal. A sacred whisper from a source that sees what you can't. Don't brush it off. Don't call it just being tired. Don't apologize for being too sensitive. You are not too sensitive. You are spiritually alert. And that awareness is why you won't fall. In part 4, we'll expose exactly how spiritual traps are disguised as kindness. And why the people who set them always begin with good intentions. Because Capricorn, what's coming next is not just about discernment. It's about recognizing the enemy in the compliment, the poison in the praise, and knowing when to walk away from the hand that offers you comfort, but hides a chain. Part 4. The compliment that carried a curse. Capricorn, not every trap begins with conflict. Some begin with a smile, with a warm tone, with what sounds like encouragement, but leaves you uneasy. You've felt it before. Someone praises you, but the words fall strangely. Instead of lifting you, they linger in your mind, heavy and confusing. It's almost as if there was something else riding on that sentence, something unspoken. That's because there was. Because Capricorn, one of the most dangerous kinds of betrayal, doesn't come from those who insult you. It comes from those who praise you with hidden resentment. Here's the truth. Some people don't want to attack you. They want to shape how you see yourself, just enough. So you'll self-destruct on your own. They give you compliments that are too calculated. Wow, you've been doing so much lately. I just hope you're not overextending. You're amazing, but don't let it go to your head. I admire you. Just remember where you came from. These aren't just passive-aggressive. They're spiritually manipulative, because they're planting a seed. A suggestion that your growth is dangerous, your success is temporary, your strength is arrogance. And if you're not awake, you'll absorb those words as truth. You'll start pulling back, second-guessing yourself, slowing down, feeling guilty for rising. Capricorn, that is the trap. Because when someone can't outshine your light, they'll try to dim it quietly. They know they can't match your discipline. They can't endure what you've endured. They can't replicate your consistency. So they shift tactics. They wrap envy in concern. They disguise jealousy as advice. And worst of all, they do it with a smile. That's what makes it so dangerous. Because you, being loyal, being respectful, being fair, you'll listen. You'll give them the benefit of the doubt. You'll ask yourself, maybe they're right. Maybe I am moving too fast. Maybe I should tone it down. But ask yourself this, Capricorn. Why is your success something that makes them uncomfortable? Why is your evolution something they feel the need to regulate? If they were truly for you, your growth wouldn't scare them. It would inspire them. You have to learn this now, because this is how traps gain power. Not through force, but through permission. Through the tiny agreements we make, when we allow someone else's insecurity to define our direction. And Capricorn, you don't owe anyone that. You don't owe anyone the right to measure your steps. You don't owe anyone the right to question your worth. You don't owe anyone the comfort of pretending to be smaller than you are, just so they can feel tall next to you. The real ones, they'll celebrate you, not correct you, not control you, not quietly undermine you. They'll say, "You're rising, and I love that for you. You're expanding, and I hope it never stops. You're becoming someone even greater, and I'm honored to witness it." And if you don't hear that from someone, then maybe, just maybe, they were never clapping for you in the first place. Capricorn, this is not the time to seek validation. This is the time to seek truth. And the truth is this: your light isn't too much. Your power isn't a problem. Your purpose isn't up for debate. In part 5, we'll go even deeper into the signs that someone close to you is silently resenting your victories, and how that resentment has already begun weaving obstacles around your path. Because traps don't start with hate. They start with unresolved jealousy, and it's time you learn to see it before it ever touches your path. Part 5. The quiet resentment that builds the strongest traps. Capricorn, you've felt it before. Not in the obvious attacks. Not in the loud arguments. But in the way someone close to you suddenly starts pulling away. No explanation, no confrontation, just silence. And it's in that silence that something dangerous begins to form. Resentment. And not just any resentment. The kind that doesn't yell. The kind that plots. You see, the most destructive traps aren't created in rage. They're born in quiet comparison. In suppressed envy. In the space between someone watching your life unfold beautifully, and asking themselves, why not me? Capricorn, here's what makes you a lightning rod for this kind of energy. You don't brag. You don't flaunt. You're not trying to prove anything to anyone. But your very existence is proof that it's possible. That discipline works. That slow progress turns into unstoppable momentum. That silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. And for people who have made excuses their whole life, you are living proof that their excuses are lies. So even if you've never harmed them, even if you've helped them, encouraged them, stood by them, your success still offends their spirit. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you mirror what they chose not to become. This kind of person won't confront you. They don't want truth, they want control. So instead of speaking up, they withdraw emotionally. They stop showing up. They start withholding support. They give vague responses, short messages, strange delays. And then, they start talking. Not to you, but about you. They plant little seeds of doubt in others. Capricorn's been acting different lately. They're not the same since they got that promotion. I don't know, something feels off about them now. That's how the trap begins. And the worst part, you'll start to feel it before you ever hear it. Your energy becomes heavy around them. You second-guess your words when they're near. You leave conversations feeling like you did something wrong, but you can't explain why. That's spiritual manipulation. And Capricorn, it's time to cut the cords. You have every right to protect your peace. You have every right to walk away without explanation. You don't owe anyone the chance to plant emotional landmines in your journey. Because here's the truth they didn't want you to know. Resentment always reveals itself. And once it does, the trap they tried to build around you becomes the pit they fall into themselves. You don't need to fight them. You don't need to prove anything. All you need to do is keep walking in alignment. Because while they're tangled in bitterness, you're moving in purpose. Capricorn, don't apologize for being chosen. Don't minimize your presence to make someone else feel comfortable in their avoidance. Some people resented you the moment they realized you wouldn't stay small with them. And that's not your fault, that's your freedom. In part 6, we'll uncover how traps gain their real power. Not through action, but through confusion. And why your ability to recognize mixed signals is your greatest weapon of protection right now. Because remember, they can't control you unless you start doubting yourself. And we're not letting that happen. Part 6. The confusion was the trap all along. Capricorn, you're known for your clarity, your grounded nature, your ability to see through the chaos, build order, and move forward even when everything around you is shaking. But lately, something's been off. You've started second-guessing yourself. The things that used to be obvious now feel foggy. You find yourself wondering, did I overreact? Was that really envy, or am I just imagining it? Maybe I'm the one causing this energy shift. Capricorn, pause right there. That voice in your head, the one full of doubt, hesitation layered on top of hesitation. That voice is not yours. It's the echo of confusion, and confusion is a spiritual weapon. Traps rarely rely on force. They don't need to catch you by power. They catch you by disorientation. Because if the enemy can distort your inner compass, they don't have to destroy you. You'll slowly stop moving on your own. You'll sit still. You'll delay. You'll shrink. Not because you've failed, but because you've lost connection with what you already knew was true. And that's the snare. Let's call it what it is. You felt the energy shift. You sensed the tension behind the praise. You knew that certain people were pulling back for reasons they would never admit. You saw the signs, and then you doubted yourself. Not because you were wrong, but because you were spiritually targeted. Because Capricorn, here's the cold truth. The first layer of the trap wasn't betrayal. It was the suggestion that your discernment couldn't be trusted. And once they implant that seed, once they make you question your intuition, they can slowly start weaving in the rest. You begin tolerating behaviors that make your spirit uneasy. You stay longer in conversations that leave you drained. You silence your inner knowing, just to avoid sounding paranoid. You give people chance after chance, not because they've changed, but because you've been softened. But Capricorn, you were never meant to walk softened. You were made to walk sure-footed like the mountain goat that climbs even in storms. And when you feel fog creeping in, that's not the time to slow down. That's the time to anchor deeper into your truth. The ones who set traps, they rely on your confusion to keep them hidden. They use sweet words to mask sharp intentions. They give you a mix of kindness and coldness, praise and silence, support and sabotage, until you don't know what's real anymore. This is called spiritual gaslighting, and it is designed to blur your vision just enough, so you never see the net being laid at your feet. But here's the truth they didn't count on. Capricorn may get quiet, but they never stay blind. You may doubt for a moment, but you always return to clarity. You may hesitate, but once you sense the pattern, you don't forget it. And once you see the trap, it loses all power. Because spiritual traps only hold those who keep walking in confusion. But a Capricorn who's fully awake can step over it like it was never there. So here's what you do now. Go back to what your soul said before the confusion crept in. Remember the moment your chest tightened before you talked yourself out of it. Recall the first signal, the first unease, the first shift. That was the truth. That was the map. That was your protection. Capricorn, your spirit never lies to you. It never has. It never will. You just have to believe it louder than the doubts they planted. In part 7, we'll explore how divine justice doesn't just protect. It exposes. And the very ones who set the trap will soon find themselves entangled in what they designed for you. Because destiny doesn't sleep, and what was hidden is about to be revealed. Part 7. The trap will expose its creator, not its target. Capricorn, you've been walking through fog. Not because you were lost, but because someone was trying to hide what they were building behind your back. But here's what they didn't realize. When you are protected by divine justice, even the most silent trap leaves footprints. And now, every footprint they tried to cover, every whispered plan, every veiled attack, every disguised betrayal, is about to reveal itself. Not by your hands, not by revenge, not even by confrontation, but by the law of return. Because here's the truth about spiritual traps. They are circular. Whatever is set for you returns to the one who set it. And that is not punishment. That is alignment. You didn't have to fight back. You didn't have to prove anything. You didn't even have to name names. Because while they were laying the net, divine justice was writing the consequence. Capricorn, the pain you felt wasn't for nothing. The unease, the confusion, the internal wrestling, all of it was building a case in the spirit realm. A case that couldn't be denied. A case that would, in time, bring clarity and correction. They tried to delay you, but the delay gave you time to see them clearly. They tried to confuse you, but the confusion forced you to trust your deeper wisdom. They tried to wound you in silence, but the silence became your sanctuary, the place where divine justice could whisper its plans for your protection. And now comes the moment they never expected. They're about to be revealed. Not because you screamed, but because your silence screamed for you. You walked away. You aligned. You let go. And in that letting go, you handed the situation over to something higher. And that's when divine justice took the case into its own hands. You may soon hear things. Stories. Confessions. Unravelings. The people who once gathered in secret about you will now be exposed by their own shadows. The ones who smiled with poison behind their teeth will now choke on the lies they told, and the very net they crafted so carefully will begin to fall apart, thread by thread, not because you fought back, but because you rose above. Capricorn, this is a sacred moment, because now you're seeing something few ever understand. Your silence was never weakness. It was divine permission for the universe to move in your favor. So if you've been asking, will they get away with it? Will this energy ever leave me? Will the truth ever come to light? The answer is yes. They will be seen. They will be revealed. And you will rise. But even more than that, you will be vindicated. Not just by justice, but by the undeniable shift that follows you. When someone tries to bury you, and you bloom anyway. In part 8, we'll go deeper into how you protect your energy during the exposure. Because when the trap snaps back, you don't just need to walk away, you need to walk into a new dimension of power, untouched, unbothered, unbound. Part 8, walking through the exposure without being touched. Capricorn, when the trap fails, when the hidden threads begin to unravel, when the masks start falling and the truth begins to rise, you'll feel it in the air. People who once smiled effortlessly will suddenly avoid your eyes. Those who gossiped behind closed doors will grow silent around you. And some may even try to return, not to apologize, but to pretend it never happened. This is what exposure looks like. Not always dramatic, not always loud, but deeply spiritual and absolutely undeniable. And here's what you must remember in that moment. The exposure is not your revenge. It is your release. You were never meant to get even. You were meant to rise above so completely that they can't even breathe in the rooms you now walk through. Capricorn, walking through exposure without being touched means one thing. You do not return to the scene of the betrayal. No chasing. No justifying. No proving your worth to people who tried to bury it. Because the real power is not in confronting the ones who set the trap. The real power is in showing them. The trap never reached you. You kept building. You kept moving. You kept listening to your spirit when the world told you to ignore it. And now that the truth is coming to light, you are no longer in the room where the darkness lived. They may try to reach out, to check in, to clear the air, to explain how things got misunderstood. But remember this, Capricorn. You didn't imagine the energy. You didn't misread the heaviness. You didn't invent the betrayal. You felt it because it was real. And you survived it because you trusted your knowing. So do not let exposure become a cycle. Do not reopen doors that were divinely closed. Do not water dead roots just because someone suddenly misses your shade. You are being called into a higher room now, where your time is protected, where your name is honored, where your spirit is safe. And you cannot enter that room while still explaining yourself in the old one. Capricorn, listen carefully. This season is not about fighting shadows. It's about walking in light so boldly that the shadows run from you. This is your time to become untouchable, not by force, but by elevation. So how do you walk through the exposure untouched? You stay silent when they panic. You stay focused when they scatter. You stay aligned when they collapse. Because what they tried to trap you in was beneath you to begin with. This is your call to emotional sovereignty, to spiritual clarity, to walking forward so deeply protected that nothing thrown from the past can pull you back into it. Let them explain themselves to the karma they summoned. Let them answer to the silence they tried to weaponize. Let them watch as you rise, not bitter, but blessed. In part 9, we will explore what true divine elevation looks like after the trap has failed, and how Capricorn doesn't just return to normal. Capricorn ascends. Because when justice shows up, so does opportunity. And what was meant to block you is about to open doors no one can close. Part 9, after the trap fails, the door that opens was meant only for you. Capricorn, when a trap is exposed, when the mask drops, when the people who plotted in silence finally fall under the weight of their own bitterness, you're left with a moment few ever talk about. Not revenge, not justice, but a strange silence. A moment where the chaos ends, and suddenly, there is room. Room to breathe, room to grow, room to move without constantly looking over your shoulder. This is not just relief. This is divine transition. Because when the trap fails, the path shifts, and what was being blocked, delayed, or distorted begins to open effortlessly, almost like a gate was waiting not for time, but for truth. Capricorn, the door that is opening for you now is not a reward. It is a restoration. It is the return of opportunities that were once detoured, conversations that were silenced, connections that were delayed, all because someone tried to pull you down in secret. But now the obstruction is gone. The spiritual interference has been dissolved. The path has cleared because the trap failed. And you're no longer on defense. You're moving in full alignment. This is what divine elevation looks like. You walk into rooms that were once closed to you, and now they welcome you. You receive answers from places that once ignored your voice. You gain support from people who weren't even in your circle because destiny is widening the stage. And what's most miraculous? You're doing all this without changing yourself. You're not louder, not more dramatic, not more aggressive. You're simply more aligned. And that, Capricorn, is the secret. You don't rise by force. You rise by being who you've always been, without compromise. Capricorn, do you remember the delays? The job that didn't call back? The project that collapsed right before it took off? The friend who pulled away just as something great was coming? Now you see why. They weren't meant to go with you. The timing wasn't wrong, the alignment was. And had that door opened back then, you might have walked into your own destruction. But now, you walk forward with no strings attached. No secrets hidden behind smiles. No weight from silent enemies. Only momentum. And a clear sky. Let me be clear. This next chapter of your life is not a restart. It's a rewarded continuation. The story didn't end, it was simply paused while heaven handled the background noise. Now, the volume is up. The path is bright. The way is forward. And it belongs to you alone. Capricorn, this is the part they never expected. That after all the sabotage, all the resistance, all the shadows, you didn't just survive. You stepped into a timeline they'll never access. Because divine justice doesn't just correct what was done wrong. It redirects you to something so right, it couldn't arrive until now. In part 10, we'll close this journey by showing you how to protect this new season of expansion. So no trap, no energy, no betrayal from the past can follow you into this higher realm. Because Capricorn, the mountain is yours now. And what comes next is only for the chosen. Part 10. The mountain is yours, but guard it wisely. Capricorn, you've made it. Not just past the trap. Not just through the betrayal. Not just beyond the silence and the schemes. You've made it to a place most never reach. A life that no longer needs defending. Because it's protected by alignment. But this new height comes with a sacred responsibility. Because the higher you rise, the more precise your discernment must become. Not everyone will celebrate your elevation. Not everyone is meant to come with you. Not everyone is ready for the frequency you now walk in. And so, now more than ever, you must learn to guard your gates. What does that mean? It means, you stop explaining your peace to those who thrive on drama. You stop sharing your dreams with those who secretly envy them. You stop seeking closeness with people whose spirits feel confusing. You stop giving one more chance to energy you already had to heal from. Capricorn, you're not walking in the valley anymore. You're walking on the mountain, and mountains have thinner air for a reason. Only those built for clarity, integrity, and alignment can breathe where you're going. And that's okay. Let them fall away. Let the silence grow. Let the elevation cost you the crowd. Because you were never called to the crowd. You were called to the climb. This is your season of pure forward motion. No delays. No distractions. No debates. And that kind of momentum requires a clean circle. One where eyes don't lie. Where words don't twist. Where presence feels safe, and silence feels sacred, not dangerous. So if anyone's energy makes your soul tighten, if anyone's presence feels like a step back, believe it. Because your spirit is now your compass, and it has never lied. Let's say this clearly. The trap failed. The betrayers fell. And you are free. Not free to go back. Not free to prove anything. But free to move as you were always meant to. Unbound. Unapologetic. And under divine protection. Capricorn, don't walk into this next season hesitantly. Walk boldly. Trust your knowing. Speak your truth. Move in wisdom. And never again doubt what your spirit tried to tell you first. Because this time, you're not walking alone. You're walking with every lesson learned, every layer shed, and every ounce of cosmic fire that was placed in you for such a time as this. Final word. Capricorn, the trap was set in silence. But it was never your story. It was your test. And you passed it. Now let divine justice handle the rest. If this message spoke to your soul, comment below. The trap failed and I rise protected. Say it boldly. Declare it spiritually. And if you're not already, make sure to subscribe to Zodiac Secrets Revealed. Because this wasn't just a video. It was a spiritual message delivered at the exact moment you needed it.